May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. Now the green blade riseth from the buried grain. It's spring, finally, and a time of hope. After months of cold and wind and rain, just outside by our labyrinth, the ginkgo tree is coming into bud and leaf. And over by the parish offices, the trees have blossomed into beautiful purple flowers that I do not know the name of. In spring, we enjoy soft, fresh things. I just had a farmer's market lunch with my sister. We had new potatoes and tender asparagus and soft scrambled eggs with garlic chives. Also, suddenly everything is pastel. Clothes and shop windows and candy. Everything is sweet and mild. Baby ducks, fluffy bunnies. We see and we savor these signs of new life. We welcome life springing green. Spring, however, is more than green leaves and daffodils and lambs leaping in a field and sometimes onto our plate. We've seen in the wake of the recent storms that spring also means mud and flood and mess. And anyone who's seen a baby born knows that life doesn't come gently and easily and neatly. Spring brings shifting. It brings struggle and upheaval. It brings change. Sometimes life creeps in soft like that wheat. But sometimes the path to new life comes with the great crack and crash of a tree falling. They lost 6 trees in Burton Park. Or a levee breaking in the Central Valley. Or someone on the phone giving us heart-stopping news. Tonight, Matthew gives us an equally heart-stopping and adrenaline-filled account of the resurrection, while the other Gospels suggest, it doesn't really say, but suggest the quiet and the dark of early morning, and John says there's a garden. Matthew gives us the rumble of a great earthquake and an angel descending from heaven like Thor in the Avengers, arriving not with a hammer, but definitely with flashes of lightning and great sound. And this glowing angel and the rumble of the earthquake are so intense and scary that those manly armed guards at the tomb, they faint with fear. I think I would have been really scared. But the women who were there, Mary Magdalene and Joanna, who was the runner-up in Lent Madness this year, and Mary, the mother of James, and other women, they had come to anoint Jesus' body with myrrh and sweet spices. They too heard the rumbling and felt the earthquake and saw the angel and all the flashing fire, but they did not faint. And the angel said to them the thing that angels always say when they show up with shocking news: do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. The words God's messenger spoke to Daniel and Gideon and to the shepherds outside Bethlehem and Mary, telling her she would bear a child all those years ago. Here at the tomb, here at the end, here in this moment when the women had come to mourn, God's messenger breaks in and shouts once more, "Don't be afraid, he is risen." And we know that the women went and told the other disciples. That's how we even have this story to tell and hear tonight. The women told, and then the men told, and then more people heard it, and those people told the story generation after generation after generation, all the way down to us. A story of fear and loss and sadness, but one that ends in great joy. That's what Matthew says about the women that morning. They left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy. And the joy and the fear were all mixed up together in the story and in their hearts. But the story was so powerful and strange and hopeful, they had to share. It came bursting out of them, God showing them a new way, a new path to joy and life. We just heard another strange story. It's one of the stories that is offered as the options to hear at the Great Vigil. There's a whole set of stories. We sang the Exodus, and we heard the story of creation, and there are readings from Isaiah and Zephaniah, and tonight we heard from Ezekiel and the Valley of Dry Bones. The prophet Ezekiel, Robin, I looked this up just for you. The prophet Ezekiel was writing from Babylon. He and his family were part of a lineage of priests who worked in and cared for the temple called the Zadokites. And they had been taken from Jerusalem after Jerusalem was conquered and the king surrendered. All the family taken to Babylon, and they lived the rest of their life there. From this exile, he heard how the Israelites resisted and Jerusalem was attacked again, and that time destroyed. The city and the people taken away, and the temple itself finally destroyed. All their generations of learning and training and tradition and service, their holy places and their homes, it was all undone. And in that context of loss and disruption, God sends Ezekiel a word, a vision of a valley of dry bones. We don't really see bones anymore. They sort of show up in westerns to indicate that it's a desert. We see plastic ones at Halloween, and maybe you see bones at a barbecue. But that's what God shows Ezekiel, this great valley, and everywhere he looked, not a few bones, not like one, cow carcass just with the wind and the tumbleweed blowing by, but the whole valley, a sign of death or the aftermath of a great battle or a plague, dry bones. When we see bones, we see an end to life and relationship, maybe even an end to love. But God looked at that valley, and he looked at all those bones and saw something else. And God invited Ezekiel to look and see too. In those bones, God saw God's people. Not death, not loss or decline, not an end. God knew there was more life in those bones, and God could have brought them back without Ezekiel, but he wanted Ezekiel to see and to wonder and to trust and to follow. God called Ezekiel to speak a life-giving word over that valley, and Ezekiel responded, and the bones knit together, and the flesh returned, and the breath came back, and the people of God were restored. Where are the dry bones in your life today? What seems heaped up and hopeless and without life? Maybe you're struggling at work or at school or with a friend or a relationship. Perhaps the climate crisis or the housing crisis or poverty seems insurmountable. And I'll say for myself, the struggles for reproductive rights and against gun violence, they seem to never end. These challenges are real, and we do struggle and we do mourn. We are surrounded by bones. But God doesn't leave us in that valley. God doesn't leave us at the grave. God sends the word and the breath God sends the angel with the earthquake. God shifts the earth beneath our feet and rattles all our bones right up into new life. God sends Jesus to break down the doors of hell and bring us all back up into life again. This holy evening, as we wait and listen, may we feel the breath of God pass over our dry bones, calling us to new life. May we share the curiosity and the hope of Ezekiel, who was willing to believe new life could come. And may we have the courage of Mary and Joanna and all the women who heard the angel at the tomb and went to tell the good news, full of fear and full of great joy. Amen.